thank you.
Go back to another one.
No, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I may get one as the meeting goes, but...
Oh, no, I'm good, thank you. Okay, can we close the box for the camera?
Fine with just moving them, unless it's meeting sponsored by Hungry Howie's.
No, just some of my fans.
Do you want to move it, Debbie?
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We all ready? It's 7.
Yeah, ready to go.
We all ready at 7.
Your call.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting of the Village of Holly on Tuesday, February 27th at 7 p.m. to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Alsop.
Here.
Cruikshank.
Here.
Heifel.
Here.
Shield.
Here.
Musgrave.
Here.
Rankin.
Here.
Okay. Before going on to consent agenda, I just wanted to say thank you to Hungry Howie's and anybody who is hungry. They have provided us with several pizzas for tonight, and that is part of the Safe Business Awards that you'll hear about later on. Moving on, consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the Village Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda. Council, any changes, additions?
Make the motion that we approve consent agenda
Before we get to that, the ladies' night out packet doesn't have any signatures on it. Is that anything we need to concern ourselves with?
No, I just made the copies before so I could get them out. Everybody signed it on Thursday.
But, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Make the motion we approve consent agenda as printed.
So moved.
Is that Brian?
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Heifel.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
Cruikshank.
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to public comment. Members of the public can address council once recognized by the chairperson. Comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes. Council may extend this time by up to an additional 4 minutes by a majority vote. Prior to addressing council, members of the public shall state their name and address for the record. Anyone for public comment? Mr. Love.
I got one already from you, John. Didn't I?
Just take it.
John Love, 200 North Saginaw, Holly. Hello?
You're on.
Okay.
That's good. Oh,
Ooh.
that's not
Now we're all set. The first issue I'd like to talk about, I'll give you a copy of this, is the meeting last time where I was removed from the Historic Commission. I talked to Perkins, and on the back side of that, it lists a statement that he did not authorize a replacement for me. So that document was fraudulently presented to the council. I don't know what kind of written documentation you have, or you just put these things out without really consulting with the president. And it was one of the reasons why he was done with what's going on. So that's your obligation and responsibility. But I know it's, you don't want to shake the boat. Everybody wants to be happy. In the process of shaking the boat, I received this award. It says, making the right decision, the Gray Lady. Oh, I got an award from the DDA. But don't worry about that. I shake the boat. In talking with Perkins, he said Cullis and Pats had called him up and said I was making too much trouble at the Historic Commission. Well, you want to hear my side of the story? They didn't want to do anything. Canceled the meetings. I had agenda items. I wanted to pursue making a budget for the Historic District Commission to make some signage that is respectable instead of driving by this Quail Run sign by the pump station. And on top of that, just raising the improvements on the waterworks and having an agenda beforehand that included these items so that we could move forward. What's Mr. Cullis's attitude? What are you doing questioning me? Oh, I only restored a commercial property on the main street to historic standards. That was a total dump. And saved the mill, did a few other things, but I don't know anything. Mr. Cullis makes the decisions. And anytime you question him, he starts bullying you and talking and talking and talking. That's not the way you do things to move forward. So I want to at least have the other side of this coin presented to you instead of just, well, he's just a troublemaker. Well, Cullis didn't have a job. Now he has a job for a year. He still hasn't painted his house. He gave himself a pay raise down at the township. He needs to fix his house, not be involved in everything, and do a good job. He makes a contribution to the community. I'm not disparaging that. But I am too. And that kind of treatment, oh, forget about it? No. I went down and talked to the police department about this, falsifying this agenda. And I'm going to pursue it with the prosecuting attorney. The other side of that piece of paper you have shows the expirations of all these different groups. Is that my time up?
Sorry, I got a new phone.
Oh.
I thought I had it on.
It's nice to be popular.
No.
Anyway, getting back to this, on this timing issue, I was appointed in April, and if you notice that the DDA terms start in April, because these things are all out of whack, so they had to redo them and redesign them. So I was really appointed for an April term. The state law for both of these groups say you have to have staggered terms. So you have 2 terms expire every year. But if you look at the Historic Commission, they're all 3 of them are all expiring the same year. That isn't how it works. But this is Holly, and it needs to be straightened out. So this expulsion deal and the replacement is not valid. Getting on to the other one here is...
Mr. Love, your time is up.
Okay, you want me to wait until later, or can I have another 4 minutes and forget it later?
That's up to the council.
I don't want to do another 4 minutes. Another minute's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. The waterworks, I want to say that too. And I don't like this behavior where they go out and put no trespassing signs on it and go after Hoffman, who's a licensed builder and insured, going in on the ground floor, which cannot collapse, and make some primary repairs so that it can be saleable to people that want to come and make a plan. What do? You come up and, well, we got a great place here, it's a dump. You can't sell something like that. Maybe that's maybe why you haven't tried to do anything with this car wash down here that you've owned for a year with no signs, no nothing has happened to it. It's just sat there rotting for a year, owned by the village. So concentrate on something that you can really responsibly and exclusively your responsibility. Not, well, I got a better plan or I'm doing something, just a blow off from the village manager. So I'd like to see you shift this and tell them, grant access to Hoffman to work on the waterworks. Let's fix it. It's a historic structure. The Historic Commission said it needs to be fixed. And that's the ordinance. So let's work on that and work together to make this thing happen.
Mr. Love, your minute is up.
I only got 1 minute? Thanks. I'm old. I'll save the rest for my next 4.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Moving on. Going into a public hearing for the Holly Mill Pond Special Assessment District. We need a motion to enter into, to recess from this meeting and enter into public hearing.
I'll make a motion to enter in public hearing for the Holly Mill Pond Special Assessment District.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Heupel, supported by Mr. Rankin, to enter into the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, we will recess at 7:10 and enter into public hearing at 7:10. Okay. Public hearing. Ms. Bigger, I'm going to defer this to you, please.
This is a public hearing for, we hire Aquaweed every year to reduce the weeds on the mill pond, and it's done by a special assessment to the people who live on the mill pond. Sorry. And the price has not gone up. It's the same price that it's been for the last 4 years. Everybody seems to be happy with Aquaweed's job. Their contract is exactly the same number of treatments and the same cost for every property owner.
Any questions, council? Comments?
Pretty straightforward.
Jim Clark's out of town. I heard he'd be here praising the.
Sherilyn is. You are the chosen one.
I am the chosen one, yes. I'm Sherilyn Everly from 314 Hadley Street. And as Ms. Bigger said, we've been paying this for about 20 years now. Everyone who owns property, who lives in the village, who owns property on the mill pond is assessed by their frontage foot. And with that, we've used that money to pay. First, we used to do weed cutting until we did some discovery that we were really just creating more weeds, because when you fragment the Eurasian milfoil, it just spreads and you get more. So it turns out that chemicals used in bodies of water like ours have been tested more than medicines that we take most of the time. So we're very confident, very happy with the job that Aquaweed has done. And if nobody has any objections, you can keep taxing us, please.
Okay.
Oh, I know one thing I want to say. I know that once in a while somebody raises the specter that we do this because it improves our property value. Damn straight.
No, let's buy a house on a polluted lake. Okay, any other public comment?
John Love again. I just wondered, does the village pay in this based on their frontage too?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay. No other comments? We'll entertain a motion to exit from the public hearing.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Cruikshank, supported by Mr. Rankin. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay.
Hey, you all tell Jim I did a good job.
Good night. Thank you, Sherilyn. Okay, moving on. Old business, we have none. New business. Item number 1, consideration of resolution 2018-010, confirming the interim village president's appointment of Tom McKinney as president of the Village of Holly Council to fulfill the unexpired term of President Jim Perkins. This one is mine. I know there has been quite a bit of activity on social media in these past few days, and I'd just like to let everybody know, I've seen the comments, I understand what people are saying, what they feel. My reasoning for wanting to appoint Mr. McKinney is the fact that, actually twofold. As you all know, we have gone through litigation of $200,000 expenditures for the village during the water lawsuit, brought on by Ms. Mrs. Gumbleton and supported by her attorneys, Pete Deal and Dale Smith. The case was thrown out. However, in appeals court, they had 21 days to appeal. They have appealed. So therefore, there is going to be future ongoing litigation through the appeals court, which is going to cost more money. My reasoning with the fact that Mr. McKinney is, number one, well-respected, he's a legal attorney, and he works for many municipalities. He has been on council before. He was appointed. He was not elected, yes, but none the same, he's done a great job. It's not a slam against the voters. It's not a slam against anybody here on council. I know of several people on council that were not interested in the position. I made my intentions clear to every single one of the members here, of the board members here. I talked with them and told them my reasoning why. Because of Mr. McKinney's experience with litigation and with different lawsuits, even though he may not be the person that's doing the litigating himself, we don't need another lawsuit from like we had with the ex-village manager. We don't need to make a judgment call that is not appropriate. And for that reason, that is why I feel that Mr. McKinney is the one that I would like to see appointed. Obviously, it's not just my vote, it's all of council's or majority, but that is my reason. It's nothing against anybody else on council. But on the flip side of that, all of this banter on social media, I think, has been one-sided. Everybody has spoken in the past about personal agendas. I feel that this is one person's personal agenda because they are interested in that position. I'm looking at the whole betterment and the good of the community. That's what I was elected to do. Whether it's a good or bad thing to have to decide on, that's what I'm trying to do. And look at it from the standpoint of how it's going to protect the village. That is my reason. So.
My question is that I'm sure Mr. McKinney, and this is, I don't know him personally and I have nothing negative to say, so I'm not even going to entertain that idea. My question is going straight to the president's seat without being elected, I think is part of the question. And it's, in my mind, it's not a personal agenda. If anybody on council is remotely interested, I'll make the motion to have them appointed to council. Debbie, if you're interested, I will make the motion right now and have you do that. I have no issue with Mr. McKinney coming in at a council seat, but I think the president seat specifically is the one that is in question for that. So I think that going from 0 to the top is the issue that I have. It's not about the individual at all, not even remotely a question. I think that just that move, it should be somebody from council in that seat and then replacing the vacant council seat, not the vacant president seat. That's where I'm coming from.
Let me ask you this, just throwing it out there. If you were not interested in running for this position or becoming the so-called incumbent for 8 months, would you still feel that same way?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there won't be an incumbent. As of right now, I have no intention of running in 2018.
Okay. Anything else from council?
I feel similarly. I was kind of, I don't know, I guess I was taken aback a little when we spoke at the address. I was expecting you to slide over into the president's seat and then appoint someone to a council seat. My first choice is not to bring in a fresh face in the center chair.
There's a lot of administrative stuff to overcome, I feel, and getting up to speed on things, and that's part of it.
but you're actually going to have the same thing come November. If whoever
Correct.
comes into this seat is going to be new.
Correct, along with
Right.
3 additional council members, you know, or re-elected council members. True.
But it's contradictory. You're going to have somebody that, per se, that may not have any experience. We've just gone through that
Right.
as
let's-
president.
And I
So
don't
why
wanna do
not
it
put
again.
somebody in there that A, has the legal experience, B, has sat on the DDA, has sat on council before. As I said, he wasn't elected, but he was appointed and did a darn good job. He's well respected, and he knows, he does this all the time. He works with litigation for municipalities. So it's not like he's coming into this blindly.
No, and the other part of it too is kind of just thinking outside of the box that, okay, so this is an individual that is well respected in the community. No one's arguing that. What if in the future there's a president, and I actually think that a charter rule should change here that vacates, or that says that if the president vacancy should be filled by a council member, that we're having the individual come through that doesn't have that knowledge. And so what if it's somebody that is not respected in the community, that there is a politics at play? So in the future, there's always that possibility that, you know, in times when we think it's somebody that is well respected and there's no issue, but there's also going to be a time in the future that somebody that the people may not think is well respected in the community.
Then that would, in my opinion, that would be council's job to make sure that they're putting the right person in the job.
I agree. And so but we also need rules to keep politicians accountable.
I think our charter says that when filling a vacancy, the council shall elect a person who possesses the qualifications required. Our village attorney was contacted, and he confirmed that the interim president can appoint anyone that she feels is the most qualified to the position of council president, and that person does not have to be a member of the current council. Even if some would prefer it to be one of us, the charter does not state that it must be. If we want to change or revise the charter in the future to say something else, that's one thing. But as it stands now, it is not against our ordinance to appoint a qualified person outside of the remaining 6 members of our council. Every one of us is qualified. Some want it more than others. However, the charter does not limit us to fill this position by giving it to the one of us who wants it the most. When President Perkins resigned, I kept thinking about what would happen in the next 8 or 9 months. How would the culture and the dynamic of the council change with the new president? However, as soon as I heard the name of Mr. McKinney being mentioned, I felt immediately reassured. This changes everything to me. I have no fear or anxiety, only a sense of relief and a complete trust. What an amazing opportunity it is for us that he is willing to step up. He has more than the required qualifications. He has all of the knowledge, experience, integrity, commitment, and he has strong roots in our community. I have personally known his family practically as long as I've known my own. I can't say enough good things about him and his whole family, especially his father and his brother Bill, who I graduated with. Tom is precisely what we need at this time. I will absolutely be voting yes for Mr. McKinney as our new village president, and I feel completely optimistic and enthusiastic about this decision.
Anyone else?
I also know Tom McKinney, and he's a very nice man, a good man, and I have no problems with Tom McKinney. I think he's a good man, just for a short time, Dave.
Well, I understand all that. We're talking about the person. You guys are using the argument of the individual. I'm talking about the procedure of taking somebody who is not on council, nor has been on council for multiple years, and bringing them into the top. That is my issue. I don't care. You can throw any name in the book. I'm still going to use the same argument of why would we take somebody who's off of council and bring them on in the president's spot. That's it. That's my question.
And as I mentioned, because of his legal knowledge that can help direct us, in addition to Mr. Gildner and our other attorneys, that's a bonus for us, as far as I'm concerned. That's just phenomenal that we have that ability. And yes, we're talking about the person, but we're also talking about the position and what goes along with the position and the decision making. And just because he hasn't been on council for 4 or 5, however many years, does not mean that he doesn't know protocol and he doesn't know how to run the meeting and the operations of the village. Obviously, we just left how do I put this? We just had someone in here who had no experience as president. That is not the case here. We've endured a year and a half of someone with no experience. And granted, Mr. Perkins, he learned. He was learning. But he does not know and did not know everything that Mr. McKinney knows. And for those reasons, that is why I felt it necessary to bring him to the head seat.
Would he be less effective as the vacant council seat versus the president seat? So with all of his knowledge, is he not able to contribute in that capacity in having a council member in the center chair?
Yes and no.
Okay.
If there are certain things that he, as a president, would need to make a decision on or bring up or even look at, then yes, I think his knowledge would be needed in that seat.
And it's the president's seat that's vacant at this time. That's what we're talking about. It's not against our ordinance. If you want to change the charter, we can do that for any future appointments that if you feel that the president should come from within the existing board members, we can look at that. But as it stands now, there's nothing that says that we can't find the most qualified person from within the village, not just from within these 6 people. And I think that's a bonus. That's a benefit to us, that we're not limiting ourselves.
I actually think that the way the charter is written is better because it allows us to make the decision. We can make the decision as a group that says, let's move somebody from council to that seat, or if the situation warrants it, we can bring somebody in from the outside. I totally agree with you. In this situation, I don't think that we necessarily need to bring somebody in from outside.
We don't need to, but we have the opportunity to have a quality person.
I don't disagree. I mean, I know Tom very peripherally, and everything I've heard about him has been, nothing but good things. So, so I don't have a problem with Tom himself. It's just
he is not interested in running in November. He has no personal agendas. He's here to do us a favor, to sit in the seat, help make the decisions that are needed, allow us to utilize his legal experience and in his brain, basically. So that's, like I said, it is nothing against anybody else. I looked at it, I thought about doing it, but I don't have that expertise like he does. Yeah, I've been in government for many, many years, but I feel that he is the most qualified person for this position right now. So
I make a motion that we consider Resolution 2018-010 confirming the interim village president's appointment of Tom McKinney as president of the Village of Holly Council to fulfill the unexpired term of President Jim Perkins.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Mrs. Heupel to consider or to approve the consideration of Resolution 2018-010 confirming the interim village president's appointment of Tom McKinney as president of the Village of Holly Council to fulfill the unexpired term of President Jim Perkins. Do I have a support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Shield. Let's do a roll call. Any further discussion first? Okay.
Heupel.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
sure.
Alsop.
Yes.
Cruikshank.
No.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, number 2, consideration of council action request for Safe Business Awards. Mr. Lentz.
Jeremy Watson. will
I'm
present.
sorry, Jeremy Watson. Sorry about that.
Good evening. It's my first time addressing this council, and I want to thank everybody for their tough decisions that they have to make sitting on this board. So tonight I'm co-piloting a program with the DDA, Ms. Katie Hughes, to recognize safe businesses in the Village of Holly. I've been here about 5 years now, part-time, and still to this day I walk in businesses and people immediately become on the defensive and are wondering why I'm here, what am I going to write them up for in a violation. And learning from Chief McGee, I've always taken the education approach. Try to educate them on the ordinances and the violations and try to get compliance through a timeline. So I went to a conference in January and I listened to a fire marshal on the west side of the state that has multiple reward programs, much larger municipality than us, but thought what a great idea for our municipality here in the Village of Holly. So with brainstorming with Katie Hughes, Chief McGee, and Jerry Walker, I teamed up with Hungry Howie's and Domino's Pizza, and once a month we're going to choose a business who has been violation free for at least a year and provide that staff and business with a free pizza party and a certificate, as you've seen in your packets, of appreciation for operating a safe business here in the Village of Holly. We're looking to roll this out first week or second week of March with your approval, and there's no money taken out of the budget. This is all sponsorships and hard work and volunteers from the Village of Holly. So I'm here to answer any questions if you have any. I'd like to thank Hungry Howie's again and Domino's for their support, and Hungry Howie's tonight for providing pizza. Please, anybody in the audience or on council, enjoy. But if anybody has any questions on that, I'm more than willing to answer.
No comments, just a question, or no questions, just a comment that I think it's a great idea. This is fantastic to honor people that way, and doing it without taxpayer dollars is even better.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have a lot of businesses that are regularly out of compliance, or do they usually fall into line pretty quickly? What's
They do, yeah. So annually we do fire inspections. I go through each business. Getting a lot better now. This year I think we had over 40 some businesses in the village that were compliant or violation free, which is outstanding. But we do have some frequent flyers. The biggest thing is the exit signs that you see here. The bulbs go out. The batteries go dead. Business owners, I try to educate them on that, The other ones are extinguishers. They have to be serviced every year. And with our historic district, we want to preserve that at all costs, and a fresh, recharged fire extinguisher will help before we can get there.
Do we have a service that does that for all of the downtown businesses? Is each business
Each business is required.
for their own?
They are required. I try to team them up together.
Right,
like the downtown, I tell them to talk with your neighbors, see who they use. Try to get them to come out at the same time. If you do multiple businesses, they might package it up a little better and give you a better price. But unfortunately, I don't get involved with that. It's the business owner's responsibility.
Right.
But I try to educate them on saving them money, because I'm not, like I said, I'm not there to cost them money. I just want to educate the community and the businesses of a safe environment. So try to be cost efficient at the same time.
Now, do you also do rental homes?
I do,
as
yep.
part of that?
I do. This month I did, I believe, 137 rental inspections this month alone. So I'm not incorporating that at this time, but I have thought of other reward programs for rentals, other projects, just actual homeowners in the village that maintain their lawns, maintain their facade of their home. But I'm starting small, and I'm going to see how this takes off, and then later on in the future I would like to progress it into homeowners and rentals as well.
I think it's an awesome idea. I mean, our
Thank you,
business
Miss.
owners, they deserve to be recognized too, so.
I agree. Yeah, we have some great business owners throughout the village. So
Okay, well, thank you.
All right.
thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Oh. I don't know if this, Mr. Gilner, will this require a motion or not?
It really doesn't.
No? Okay.
No.
Okay, great.
It's a council action request.
Pardon me?
It's a council action request. Does that mean it?
Well,
It
let's
doesn't
just do a
require.
motion.
Okay.
You can obviously do something, but you don't have to.
Well, I'll make the motion that
Yeah.
we
Indoors?
support,
Support or endorse, yeah.
endorse the council action request for Safe Business Awards.
I'll support that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. And number 3, consideration of the DDA director notifying the downtown merchants of the dates and times of any downtown street closures after they have been approved by council.
I requested this to be put on the agenda, so I'll take the lead on this. I had been approached by a few merchants downtown stating that requesting that any street closures that are in the consent agenda, if they're less than 60 days in advance, if they could please be notified not only through a social media, but also email or any other type of notification that we can, just so they can prepare their customers and their stores for potential street closures. So I just wanted to have that formally talked about in the session, that that we could maybe have talk to Jerry Walker and see if he would allow that to be protocol for the DDA communications director.
I don't see why it could be. I mean, it's a group email, as long as we have the proper emails for everybody.
Yeah, I think
I would make sure that, yeah. Go ahead.
I would just say, as long as we have a current email list from the downtown, which I'm guessing, Katie, you have contact information for all of our downtown businesses, then that we could set up you could set up a group email and.
So
hey,
that's how I've been communicating. I'll do it on social media, but I'll also send an email. So there's 162 businesses in the DDA district, of which I have 137 email addresses. So there are some that choose not to use email. So those ones I do not have email addresses for. I'd love to communicate with everyone, and I do have a listserv that I put together. I often send out communication through email, but there are those few that just slip through the cracks, being that I don't have their current email address or any email address for them. Some choose not to communicate in that method.
I'd be fine with it. I would just make sure that I don't want hand-delivered mail. I don't want phone calls to everybody, because that just sucks a lot of administrative time. As long as it's email and digital communication of some sort, I'm fine with it.
I think it's a great idea, quite honestly. I think the more that the downtown businesses are aware of what's going on and the events that are happening, the more they're able to capitalize on it.
I also want to make sure that this does not reflect at all on the job that we think that our DDA director is doing. Katie, you're doing a wonderful job. As just because it was brought to me, I felt that we should talk about it and find a way to have as many ways to inform the merchants as possible, which I'm sure you're already doing. But I think it's also a responsibility of the merchants to look for themselves what's going on. We can provide only so much at some point,
Right.
Especially if they don't have social media. Check with their neighbors, check with the website, find a way to see what's going on. It's a two-way responsibility.
Right.
Communication.
If you know you don't have email,
And I'm sure
you
that
want to be notified.
if you don't have the email addresses for several businesses and you're aware of that and you happen to be there, I'm sure you're out and about all the time. You probably mention it.
Absolutely.
Hey, next week we're closing the streets. They're having this event, because you're always hyping up the events going on downtown.
So the ladies' night out is it's more than 60 days in advance, so we don't have to do that. But if there's anything other, last meeting there was the weddings with the Battle Alley closures, and there were multiple dates, and some of those are very much farther than 60 days, but it might be good to have reminders out there as the day gets closer within 60 days to let them know.
Would you recommend, or are you suggesting then the event packets that are submitted that include the list of street closures, and typically there's a map that shows which streets are closed and during what time frame? Are you recommending or suggesting then that I email the packet, the event packet to, or just the map of the closure or the time, just so I'm clear on what specifically that would be recommended to communicate to the merchant so that they're aware.
Yeah. I think the hours that it would be closed and which streets would be closed. I think that should be sufficient.
Yeah, I don't see a necessity to include the entire packet.
Yeah, I don't
Just
think the whole packet.
Make them aware when the roads are going to be closed.
And I do want to make sure that we're not, leapfrogging over your direct report. Okay, you don't respond to us. We're not your direct boss. Okay, I'm just suggesting it as a courtesy to our downtown merchants or all the merchants. I don't know if the north merchants would need to know what's going on right downtown the days. So that would be something that you would work out with the manager or with the DDA. But just wanted you to be aware that that's what's been talked. Okay.
Thank you.
I would just hate to see a business plan a super sale or
Yeah.
a sidewalk sale or something like that, and then the roads are closed.
Right.
So then that's going to impact their business and their
And the
revenue.
customers aren't aware of it either
Exactly.
with
Trying
enough
to-
time, so they're
Try to
inconvenienced.
find a place to park
Yeah.
and then just say, forget it.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, okay, I don't think we need to take
Yeah, I
any
don't think
action on
there's
that
a
other than the
motion.
fact that, Katie, you know what we would like, so.
Sure.
And you're already doing it, so that's
Well,
good.
I'll take that one step further then and make sure that the merchants know what's going on in the downtown, just to keep that line of communication open through the email addresses that I do have, and I'll continue to gather as many as I can, just knowing that a few of them do not use that method of communication.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you. Okay, reports. All right, anybody, Miss Interim Village Manager?
And nothing really to add to his written report, other than he's probably really proud of all his department heads.
And he's giving them all raises, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Read these minutes. Be careful.
Put smiley faces, okay?
He's probably watching it.
He probably
He
is.
might be.
Yeah, he probably is.
Hi, Jerry.
Mr. Gildner.
I have nothing.
Ms. Bigger?
Nothing much in my office. Tomorrow is the last day to pay property taxes in the village. After tomorrow, they have to be paid at Oakland County. And in your packets in the information section, there's a flyer. We are now going to sell Oakland County annual vehicle park permits at the village offices. And we just started that this week.
Are you getting a lot of response?
We just started it this week, so nothing much yet, but we're hopeful.
Did we send out an email or a
It's on the signs. We put it in the packet. It's posted at the village offices, and there's a sign on our desk.
but the gov.delivery thing?
Yes, it will be in the next month.
Okay.
The one that she is sending out for March will
Perfect.
say, we are now selling them.
Are we going to be selling dog licenses also?
Yes, we are selling dog license.
Beginning May?
Beginning
March.
now. We started January 1st. We
Now,
start
okay.
January 1st. So we're selling them right now.
Romeo needs his.
Aw.
Okay. Boards and commissions. Dave?
I was absent from the last planning commission, so Katie, were you there, or Jeremy, can you guys fill in?
They approved the text amendment. You'll be seeing it come forward to you in March for the NOC, just clarifying the NOC language to allow commercial and residential in the same building in the NOC district. So they approved that, and Mr. Gilmer and council will be receiving that tonight to move forward with that.
Ben?
There was a community center meeting yesterday, and our director is here. So, is there anything to report other than what you've already given us? Yeah.
They are putting together a committee to try to find something once a month to utilize the auditorium to try to bring more people into the community center. And then just today, I got 17 round tables donated. So now we're up to full capacity. We need to fill our space in commentary for big events. So.
Nice.
Awesome.
We like donations.
And I do too.
Ryan?
I have nothing for either one.
Okay. Chris, Parks?
Parks has not met since the last council meeting. We have a meeting next week.
Bob, CBA? Okay. Nothing for personnel and finance. And Chief Story, anything to add to your report?
No, I'm not.
Mr. Clausen?
Good, thank you.
Okay. Katie?
I'll add a little bit since typically it would be Mr. Perkins who would attend the DDA meeting. So we've been quite busy with a lot of activity. The historic Union Depot project is moving forward. We had another meeting to discuss our intentions for the building and kind of plans to move forward. We do have we've got a guy from CSX and one from CN, a gentleman who are speaking with us about the projects and who are eager to help us with the project.
Awesome.
The meeting that we had.
That's huge.
That is huge.
Yes.
So we have somebody who says, sure, we'll help you. At the meeting, we discussed what to do with the building and kind of where we'd like to move it. Those are the two things that were suggested from the Ron Campbell from Oakland County, the historic architect and preservationist. And the first one was that we would like to keep this building to be a public building, not to sell it to a private entity. The second is to, we know from both railroads, if we would like to use the building again, that we do have to move it. And if we would like to move it, we have a first choice and a second choice of where we'd like it to go. But it hasn't been approved yet. These are things that have to be submitted for the Secretary of the Interior standards for site placement. So they have to be okay with it. The first, our preferred space is to pick that 80-foot long building up and move it right across from the Moose Lodge and Andy's Place in that green space. We just have to find out if that's okay to do that. And the second choice would be in Crapewell Park between the two rails there, the spur, the accessory line. And the use for the space, some ideas would be a welcome center and a tourism office, Chamber of Commerce offices, public bathrooms, a little like a gift shop selling Holly type items, a place where nonprofits and community groups could meet, and also kind of a museum of sorts with information about the building itself and how it's important to the history of Holly, and kind of telling its story. So that meeting went very well. There's a lot of support, a lot of information, and it's moving forward full speed ahead. We also had a ladies' night out meeting and talked about plans for that. The date's been changed. It's no longer going, I shouldn't say no longer. We're changed the date from Mother's Day weekend to the last Friday in April to see if that will increase the attendance, because historically the attendance for spring has been a little less than fall. And so we thought, let's try and change the date, see if that's what it is. If not, we can always change it back. But we're looking forward to Ladies' Night Out on Friday, April 27th from 5 till 9. We have a volunteer fair that's coming up March 19th from 6 till 8. We have over 20 different organizations that are planning on coming, and hopefully we'll have support from the community, people who are looking to get involved. It's a great place, kind of business expo style. And then we'll be hosting a Holly Days meeting, which will be September 7th, 8th, and 9th is the date of the weekend, in conjunction with the Parks Commission. So lots of activity happening within the DDA.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What was the date again for the Biz Expo?
Oh, for the Volunteer Expo? So that's March 19th from 6 till 8 p.m. in the Carl Richter Commons area.
You said what, March 9th?
March 19th. It's a Monday night, 6 till 8. Should be a great night, and we've been delivering flyers out around town about the event. That's posted quite a bit.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Did I skip anybody in? Ms. Brinker?
I already gave my
Anything else?
No.
Okay. Chief McGee?
I'm good too.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay, let's
Clean
move
sweep.
on to council comments. Dave?
I went to the MML conference on Friday and Saturday up in Frankenmuth, so I got a good refresher on some hot topics that they're talking about. And I got a couple of PowerPoints, and I even mentioned it to Katie. I wanted to kind of get with them on some of the things that they're suggesting in order to boost economic activity, apply for some different grants and all that. So some good information there. Ryan attended as well.
Yep.
So that was good times. And then next Thursday, I'm going to Red Fox Outfitters to meet with the Shiawassee group that puts on what they call Riverfest once a year. So they do that one day in the fall. It's like a Saturday 12 to 7, but they're, everything around the river. So kayaking, we're talking bands, vendors, food, people, So I put a bug in the ear of Brad Jacob, who's on that committee over there, and he immediately jumped on it. Yes, let's do it in Holly. So I'm going there to try and present some ideas of where we could have it, and some of those 10,000 foot view details. But it sounds, and I'm hopeful that in 2019, and they'll do it for 2 years in each city. So 2019 and 2020, if we're approved, Riverfest will be in Holly. So I think that kind of ties in everything when they're working with the Headwaters Trail to get the to get it nationally recognized, and then just kind of boosting Waterworks Park. We're kind of honing our focus onto that. So I think that's kind of a perfect mea culpa moment.
Wonderful. Suzanne?
No further comments.
Ryan?
I'm gonna just go. Like Dave said, I was up in Frankenmuth for the MML conference and learned quite a bit. Maybe a little too much to comprehend all in for 2 days, but it was overall a good weekend. A good experience.
Good. Chris?
I have nothing further tonight.
Bob?
I mean, you advised me. What do we do with Mr. Love? He's been to my house 3 times today. I was out of town in Louisville, Kentucky. He calls my cell phone about all what's going on. And I told him, I said, I don't really know what was going on with Mr. Love and all these people he worked with. And I told him, I said, if you have any opinions, I don't want to discuss it at home. I said, you come to the council meeting and you speak on that speaker and tell all of us what happened between you and that group. That's the right thing to do, Mr. Love, because I don't mind you as a friend, but I don't want you coming over to my house and haunt me when you should discuss in front of all the council members right now. John, Mr. Love.
Well, I kind of talked about it already when we talked about
But
Not yet. It's not public
but not
comment
with
yet.
what you were telling me. You need to speak your piece up there and get this out of the way so there's no loose ends.
That will come during public comment. I haven't had my
Public-
chance for
Okay, I mean, I
for
know.
council comments yet.
I just want to put this to bed.
Are we allowed to speak of the other letter that we have in our packets here?
That was
considering
what
that?
I was going to just now bring
Okay,
up.
all right.
Yes. Okay. I know there is a letter floating around that, I have it, that Mr. Love presented to several people as well as the police department that states, I, James Perkins, while president of the Village of Holly, did not remove John Love from the Holly Historical Commission. Jim Perkins, 2/12/18. On February 15th, I have a letter from Mr. Perkins. It's addressed to Jerry Walker, Village Manager. At 10:01 a.m. on February 15th, 2018, I received a phone call from former President Jim Perkins. Jim said that he needed to talk with me about John Love coming to his house last night and causing a huge scene. He stated that John was out for my head over him being removed from the HDC, the Historic District Commission, at the last village council meeting. Jim stated that Love kept putting a letter in front of him to sign, blaming me for his removal, and it stated that Jim never authorized it. He continued and said that he knows he had discussions with both George Cullis, which was the HDC chair, and me about his intention to not reappoint John Love to the HDC. But he signed a letter John wrote up anyway just to get him out of his house because he would not leave otherwise. Mr. Walker says, I then discussed with President Perkins that during our previous discussions regarding not reappointing John Love to the HDC, we talked about the fact that John had in fact been disruptive in HDC meetings, but the reason for him to not be reappointed was that his current term had expired. President Perkins and I then talked about our positive working relationship and the fact that I had been in the process of prioritizing goals to be accomplished for the remainder of this presidential term as well as the next. Jim concurred and said there was absolutely no issues between he and I, and he enjoyed our working relationship. During our conversation, Jim asked me to prepare a letter clarifying this conversation and the reason for John Love not being reappointed, and after looking at it, he would sign it. He again said the only way to get John out of his house last night was to sign the letter John had, so he did. I also have a statement from Ms. Bigger, village clerk and treasurer. I called Mr. Perkins on February 15th at 2 o'clock. I was told he has stopped in to see me while I was at a meeting. He said he did stop in to see me because he wants to come in and sign the letter Jerry was preparing. I told him I had not spoken with Jerry and I didn't know about the letter. He said it was a letter to clear things up because Jerry and the administration were being blamed for his resignation. He said he wanted to sign a letter stating that he resigned for personal reasons and it had nothing to do with Jerry or myself. He said that he felt our working relationship was good and I agreed with him. He said he wanted to sign a letter stating that so people would stop blaming us for his resignation, us being administration. And it's signed by Mr. Perkins, Jerry Walker, and Ms. Bigger. So as far as this letter that you took over to Jim's and had him sign, you were not removed from your position, you were just not reappointed. And this letter is to clarify his reasoning for signing this letter.
When do I get a copy of that?
When you FOIA it.
You're so cute.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that for everyone. So.
And if I can just play devil's advocate, this letter that Jim signed says that James Perkins did not remove John Love from the Holiday Historical Commission, and he really didn't. John's term just expired. Jim had nothing to do with it.
Exactly.
So Jim signing this really doesn't accomplish anything.
Well, from the interpretation that Mr. Love has was that Mr. Perkins or Mr. Walker, either one, had exited him from his position. And
I understand the backstory on it. I just wanted to clarify that this letter right here just says that Jim didn't remove John from the HDC, and he didn't. Right. So perfect.
Are you contented, Mr. Love, now?
What?
Are you contented?
Am I contented with what?
Are you content now with this issue?
I've never seen it before. I've never seen it. It's kind of ironic that I wasn't at least given a copy of it. I think that's disrespectful. So that's what I think about it.
Why would we give you a copy of this unless
you're you and I'm just a stupid citizen. That's why.
No, I never said that, nor implied that.
That's what I would have done in your place.
Well, you're certainly entitled to your opinion.
That to be common courtesy. That's all I consider it to be. Send me make me do a FOIA and go through all that. It's kid stuff. That's what I think about it.
No, this is a document.
Oh, I don't know.
So, and you are the one that are going to the police and are taking this around and showing people and having people look at your letter. Okay. Worst, what I got was a letter to read.
People, at least I took it to somebody and let them read it. I gave you a copy.
You took it to the police department because you wanted to file a fraudulent claim. That's why. The police department saw it. Bottom line. This is something that we got. And I read it to the public here at the meeting, so everybody had an opportunity, and anybody else watching the thread had an opportunity to hear it. So.
I understand what your position is. I understand what happened here. I understand the whole thing. And what happened is, they worked this out. I don't know how they pressured Perkins or what happened. I'm the one that was responsible for pressuring them. I don't buy that. So
Well, maybe that's something you need to take up with Mr. Perkins.
I will take it up. I'm not going to do that. If he's decided to go that way, that's fine. He's moved on, that's fine. It was to be right, something like that, that's fine. That just changed my image of him like this. But the pressure on him was very severe, and I recognize that. So I don't, so he wasn't up to it. That's all I have to say. As far as what I said is, it was inappropriate what they did. And if that's the way we want to run this town, this village, that's the way it's going.
And you're certainly entitled to your opinion, Mr. Love.
I'm on the wrong route.
You are certainly entitled to your opinion. But, as I said, I read the letter which was presented to us, and everybody has the opportunity to hear it. So, you heard it. You just heard it. I just read it. John, I'm not going to go into this with you back and forth, okay?
I'm not going to either.
Good. Then this is the end of it.
No, I have public comment.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Public comment.
Oh, I can talk some more.
For 4 minutes.
Okay, this issue is behind us because of what you've done in pressuring him and whatever's taken place. That's how I look at it. But I'm making it up. So I understand that. I'm making it up, and everybody here is right on top of it. The village attorney here didn't even make a correct compliance on the DDA terms because there's a whole year with no expiration of terms. That's contrary to the state law because they have to be staggered, but we're not going to worry about that. I have this one question to you. What is your goal to improve Holly this year? What specific project or target do you have to make Holly a better place? I've made contributions to make this a better place. From the buildings that were historic buildings that would have been torn down that I had to fight the village over. But don't worry about that. The village has the right position on all these things. And this treatment you're giving Hoffman on fixing the place up, putting these no trespassing signs and all that stuff, you need to tell your village manager to stop doing that kind of thing and allow him access to take care of that for you because it really is your responsibility to maintain a historic building that was designated by the Historic District Commission that I used to be on. So, what is your goal? My goal is to get the waterworks fixed, but Hoffman's working on that part of it. What is your goal to make this a better town? Why don't you tell us next council meeting, if you can manage that, instead of this kid stuff that we're going through here.
Thank you, Mr. Love.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Marta, 115 South Saginaw. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the Village of Holly sends us a registration form for the businesses every year that we have to fill out, and it has to be filed by June 30th. So maybe the village could share with the DDA our business, our phone number, our email addresses, all of our contact information. That has to be on that form. It has to be submitted to the village. I've received them for years. I've had to file them every year. So maybe the village could loan them to the DDA. That way the DDA would know what businesses they have and all the information.
That's a good idea.
So it's the information's there in the village. So maybe the village could share it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, no further public comment. We will adjourn this meeting at 8:03. Thank you all for coming.
Hey Dave, what time is the gig at Red Fox?
I think you're just pulling it all out.
Thursday, 7.
7 o'clock?
Yeah. I'll confirm with Brad.
Okay.
Whatever you say. No, I want to bring it out. You don't need to.